And welcome to Healing X Outreach Radio. I'm your host, Augustine Estacio, and that is the Adams Road Band. The title of the song is The Church, and running a little late this morning. I just want to really apologize to everyone. And we are going to be having a co-host, and just looking for Jeremy to go ahead and pop up on here and press 1 so that I can see him. And yep, there he goes. All right.
Hey, good morning.
You're on the
afternoon.
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, Jeremy. Yes, so Jeremy is our co-host today, and we had Jeremy on a couple months back. And Jeremy, you're a former Marine, am I not correct?
No, U.S. Army.
U.S. Army, okay. Former man of the military. First of all, we just want to recognize our military and thank Jeremy for making the ultimate sacrifice for our country and participating in the military of our country, defending us, our homes, our security, and all of our military men that do that. Of course, we're going to be talking about some of these subjects, of course, that really cross into the Jehovah's Witnesses this morning. First of all, we have a show next week. I just want to let you all know that we're going to have Dr. John Nunez. And even though today would have been the ideal day to cover the topics that we're going to cover with Nunez, we will be covering them next week, which is we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming Halloween holiday, what October 31st means as Reformation Day, why Martin Luther resonates with the story of people that have come out of the cults, specifically Jehovah's Witnesses. And so we'll be having Dr. Nunez next week. If Jeremy, if you're able to make that show, that's fine. If not, that's fine also. But we're going to be testing Jeremy on a couple shows. He's going to be co-hosting. He's going to be hosting some shows. He's going to be a debate moderator. We have 2 debates coming up. They have one in November and one in December, both with atheists, both on different topics. One is on the resurrection, and I think the other one is going to be on the virgin birth. So we have a lot planned in the next 2 months, and I just really want to welcome Jeremy Shepperd to the show. He's going to be doing a lot, and I think that Jeremy is going to be a lot better with Blog Talk Radio than I have been. First of all, because he's timely.
Well, Gus, I really appreciate you having me on. This is wonderful for me. I'm really excited about what we have upcoming.
Oh yes, well, hey, I'm excited also for you, and looking forward to all the stuff that we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. And right now, I'm trying to get on. I guess I might have to get off on. There's also a video suite. I just want you to know that we have available that we get on. And here we go. Let me try that. Having incognito is not really not going to work well with trying to get on the video suite. That's for sure. So on the link of today's show, there's also another way that people can listen, and that is through the video suite. And so there are 3 ways that people can listen to today's program. One is they can listen through the Blog Talk line, which you, Jeremy, had connected with, which is 347-934-0379. The other way you can listen is through the 6 Screen Telenetwork line, which is 712-432-8710, and then when prompted, dial 9925. And then the other way, which is through the video suite. And right now I'm trying to get onto the video suite. And the video suite is on the 6 Screen Telenetwork line. We left a link there for the video suite you get onto the 6 Screen network. And Jeremy's already right there. Look at that. See, I'm late to the game. I'm really late to the game. So you guys gotta be a little patient with me this morning. You know, I'm probably a little giddy about the news that I got yesterday about Hillary Clinton getting finally going to get justice. So I was like, "Oh, Aaron, I was asking about you." Yeah, well, Aaron, you were asking about me because I'm late to the game this morning. So, yeah, I really want to apologize to everyone. I'm a little late this morning, and I'm trying to cut on my camera. And even though cutting on my camera might be a bad idea for you guys, I'm looking a little scary this morning. And let's see the speaker. Let me make sure that our volume is up. All right, there goes the camera coming up. It looks like a couple things are coming up. Yeah. So, yeah, there we go. There we go. Things are popping up now. All right. Hello, everyone. There I am. Scary hair and everything, you know. Yeah, let the show begin. Yay. So, yeah, everybody's on here. I'm on here. And, okay, great. So, I really want to apologize to everyone. So this has been kind of rough with me. I've been doing Healing X Outreach for about 8 years. For a long time, I was a co-host to Nate Beckman when we were Healing XJWS, and now we have Jeremy. He's going to be our co-host, and he's going to be hosting also. And so I need all the help that I can get, and I'm just really thankful that Jeremy has jumped on the train here on Healing X Outreach, and he's going to be doing some things with us. And so, first of all, Jeremy, how was the Witnesses Now for Jesus convention?
Oh, it was wonderful. I only got to attend the one day that I actually spoke, but I'm definitely making it a plan to be there from now on because there was just such amazing people. I got to make friends and see people that I'd been watching for so long, and you know, I always wondered, you know, are these people as genuine as they say they are in real life? And I can tell you for a fact they are. They're extremely genuine, extremely loving, and I was incredibly blessed by the experience.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there was a couple of things that happened this year. I guess it was fortunate that you were only there that day, but I think that they cut the short on Sunday because Bob Anderson actually had a heart attack. He had two arteries that were almost completely clogged. One was, the other one wasn't. But
yeah, he had one was 100%, and the other one was 90%, I believe.
Yeah, so he's doing a lot better now, and the reason why I know because he's posting a lot on Facebook. So Bob is doing a lot better now. And I remember the year before he had really bad gout, and so I guess still pray for Bob Anderson's recovery. And Eric also fell ill too, and so we have the two Bobs and the one Eric. And so two of the three were not doing well as far as their health is concerned. So we want to keep them in our prayers. Doc Bob was still able to go on. And I really, to be honest with you, I think that personally, this is a personal opinion of myself, that I think the convention should end at 12 o'clock on Sundays anyway, as opposed to going on the whole length of the Sunday. Usually people need to start traveling and getting back. I think the highlight for me at the conventions have always been having communion with other ex-witnesses.
Mm.
Eric says, can I turn you up? No, I mean, really, I don't control the volume for my Aaron, so I hear him just fine on this end.
Maybe it's through the video suite? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Maybe can you check? You can check your volume on the video suite. It's at the left corner.
Okay. She says she can hear me okay now, so I'm wondering.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it was on her end. Yeah.
Oh, okay, there you go. So, So I know for me the highlight has always been having communion with other ex-witnesses, and usually the testimonials are always great. On Friday, who else did you get to hear speak?
Oh, quite a few people. Wilbur Lingle got to speak. Eric's wife, Jean Grieshaber, was able to speak, okay. And Lori McGregor, which she was even surprised that she got to attend this year, and so she got to share her experience as well. So that was wonderful.
That's great because Lori really doesn't. She normally can't make it. In fact, that's 2 times in perhaps the last maybe 10 or 12 years that she's been able to make it. She was there one of those years that I was there. And it's been harder for her because of her health, and I think she also had a mom that she was taking care of. So that's great that you got to hear Lori. And Lori is she's a fantastic speaker, really. She's one of the few people that really has the gift of gab, and I mean that in the best way possible because there's Paul Blizzard's another guy I could listen to all day, along with Lori. And I think Keith Walker there?
No, he wasn't able to make it this year. He had some other plans. He was able to watch the webcast from his home, but he just had too many things going on. He wasn't able to make it in person.
Yeah, Keith is great, and so is Jay Hess. They as far as teaching is concerned, I think last year for me when I went, they were the highlights. Jay and Keith were the highlights last year as far as their teaching was concerned. It was really, really fantastic stuff that they gave. So at the convention, I tell you, you have testimonies, and then you have some fantastic teachers. And what's really amazing about the convention is the fact that Keith has never been a witness. He's never been a Mormon, but even though he does a lot of ministry to Mormons, he goes out to Utah every year. But he is very knowledgeable to the point that I think that he is very effective talking to witnesses better than some ex-witnesses, better than most. So Keith is really, really fantastic. So if you guys don't know who Keith Walker is, Google Evidence Ministries, and Keith on YouTube has a channel, and on his channel, he always asks a quick question for Jehovah's Witnesses. And it's really, really great stuff that he does as far as outreach to Jehovah's Witnesses and to Mormons. So that Keith is great on that. In fact, in 2 weeks, not this week, but not even next week, a week after, we're going to do a rebroadcast of the couple that used to do worship out in Witnesses Now for Jesus Convention. And they both are former Mormons. In fact, let me go ahead and look up that program here that we have of that couple. I'll say my PC is running so slow this morning. I'm having a tough time with it. Unbelievable. There we go. So we're going to have Nunez, and then we have a rebroadcast following Saturday. And I think on Thanksgiving weekend is when we're going to have our debate. It's with James Crossley. That's the debate that we're going to have. And my computer is just glitching. It is just types of stuff popping up. All right. I can't get it up. It's just I'm a mess this morning. I'm late. I have a computer that's glitching. I have a cat that's howling. But that was your first experience sharing your testimony. I'm Jeremy. The last couple of years, the attendance has dwindled at the conference. I went to the conference back in the years when they had as many as 400 people there.
Oh wow!
And they used to pack it in. Saturdays it would be really. Friday we would probably have about 100 to 125 people maybe, and then on Saturday it would be packed. It would be packed on Saturday, and then Sunday it would still be pretty much packed. Like once again, I think the highlight for everyone is communion. There you go. But now, it's been harder to get people to go to the convention because social media is where everybody gathers.
Right.
And so, now everybody has Facebook groups, and I don't even know what they're doing on Sheila, what's that thing that you guys do? My wife and my daughter do. What's the social media that you and Amber go? I don't even know if they have Jehovah's Witness, ex-witness Tumblr groups. Okay, Tumblr is the big thing for my wife and my daughter. She says there's a whole bunch of Christian groups. So Tumblr is big. Of course, we still have Twitter, and I do know some people on Twitter. I tweet a little bit. And then we have also Instagram. So I don't know, social media is, and in fact, social media has such an impact. It's had a huge impact on this election. That's what's really funny. If we're going to really talk a little bit of politics. But the fact that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox and all these networks have claimed to have been kind of bought by one of the parties in the election, and yet it's been social media that has had an impact on this election that, really shows you how powerful social media has become now. All right, my studio is just getting back on. I'm going to have to reconsider using another computer for this show from now on, because this is madness. So Jeremy, I think we talked a little bit about, we're going to pick a topic today, and one of the topics that I think that really fell on our lap because you had an ex-witness or maybe a current witness that spoke to you at the convention. Can you share us a little bit about your encounter at the convention or after the convention with someone who was asking you questions?
Oh, certainly. This is someone who had seen my testimony on YouTube because unlike in previous years, they were able to put up the videos quite fast. So they were up within the week. And so someone had seen the video on YouTube and searched my name on Facebook and found me and messaged me. And he is a current witness. I'm not going to share any details because he's asked me to keep his identity a secret. So I'm not going to out him right now. But he was moved by the testimony. He saw a lot of himself in it. And so he wanted to reach out and, just ask me some questions, ask me my opinion on some things. And we've been talking for about 2.5 weeks now, back and forth.
Oh, that's great. And what was one of the questions that he asked you?
Yeah, well, one of his biggest concerns was if the Jehovah's Witness organization is not the true Christian association, what is? And it seems like there's a big stumbling block there because he doesn't, I think he still thinks of things sort of in organizational terms. And so his question is, if, it's more along the lines of, is there a correct denomination? not
right.
simply is there a true Christian association.
Right.
So he's looking for a different organization, I guess you could say, at this point. And so our discussion sort of sprung out from there. And I'd even talked to you about it because, you know, I responded to him, but I wanted to make sure that I was sort of approaching it in the right way because, you know, I don't want him to get scared off as far as, you know,
right.
having an open discussion, and I don't want to give him a non-answer as well.
And so, so you gave him a response before our discussion? Did you have any further communications with him after our discussion?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like I said, we've been talking for about 2.5 weeks now, and coming to think about it, let me go ahead and pull up that conversation just a little bit so I can reference that a little better.
Mm-hmm. While you're pulling that up, I just wanted to share with everyone. Finally came up the episodes that I have planned. On November 12th, Mike and Ruth Ann Harvey, that's the rebroadcast. Mike and Ruth Ann Harvey used to, they were doing the worship for years. I think at least 20 years at the convention, Witnesses Now for Jesus convention. And they're now actually doing theater, which I think that's awesome. They just this week I Googled them, and I put in the theater. They're doing theater out of the church that they're attending now. They weren't doing theater; they were just doing music for a long time. Now they are delving into theater, and I love theater. I love it. We went to Lancaster a couple weeks ago to the Bible on Stage Millennium Theater to see Samson. And Amish country is just filled with that. There's an American theater in Lancaster that does Bible. They have so many Bible plays over there that people are doing. So it's just I love theater, and so they're doing theater now. And I put a link in the advertisement for their ministry. I think it's called Gethsemane Ministries. To hear Mike and Ruth Ann. That's just we did 2 programs with them. Usually when I have couples, I do 2. So, but this is one of the programs that will be on the 12th. And of course we have Dr. John Nunes from Concordia College. Now, I wanted him actually on this week, but we're going to have him next week. But Nunes, the reason why I wanted someone from Concordia College is I actually attended Concordia College through online studies, and I was a Lutheran. I was a pastoral assistant in the Lutheran church at the time, and now he's the president of that college. He was actually not the president when I was attending, and he was, I think, in charge of Lutheran World Relief. So now he's the president of that college, and I was glad to see him there because I actually learned about Dr. Nunes before I was even a Lutheran. Through a mutual, my pastor at the time in the Free Church when I was part of the Evangelical Free Church, through one of what we call the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals, and a website called Reform African Americans or Reform Blacks in America. And he was, I think, listed amongst those. He's a brother. He's African American. And I was looking for brothers who were reformed in their theology, and he was one. Of course, he's not reformed in the same sense that I'm reformed because I'm probably more Anglican and Presbyterian than he is. He's Lutheran. But still, when we link up churches that are probably linked more tied towards the Reformation, the Lutheran Church would be one of them, at least a conservative branch of the Lutheran Church. So that's why we're going to have Dr. Nunes next week, and then a rebroadcast. And then we have another show to cover we haven't decided on. But on the 26th, we will have William Alberts, who's Catholic, against James Crosby on the resurrection. And I don't know if it's that one that you wanted to do, Jeremy, or the one in December. So the one in December is on the 17th. And these are both world-renowned atheists, by the way. I don't know how William's able to get these guys. James Crosby is a world-renowned atheist, and the other guy is John Loftus. And John Loftus is another world-renowned atheist. And we had in March or April, we had Dan Barker, who's another world-renowned atheist. So we've been getting these atheists for the year 2016. So
well,
you can pick them.
My schedule is pretty free. Whatever you want my help with, I'd be more than happy to be a part of it. So
right. Oh, great. I mean, either the 26th or the 17th, either one. I always say as a moderator of the debate, I'm just a glorified button pusher.
Mm-hmm.
all we are is really timekeepers. Of
right.
course, if they try to get a little out of hand, me and you will discuss a little bit debate rules about ways to penalize people that get a little out of hand. But yes, all the debates have gone very well. I think one debate got a little out of hand. Was the debate actually? It was a 3-hour debate, and for that month we were able to do 3-hour programs. It was on health. And so it was a heated debate. Pardon the pun. It was a heated debate on health, and it was between William, who's Catholic, and a guy who was actually Reformed, but an annihilationist, which is kind of an oxymoron, but I guess we do have them out there. And I remember, tempers were flaring over that debate, and I had to penalize one of the debaters. So yeah, I'm glad that your schedule's open. So we'll discuss after the program which debate you want to go ahead and moderate, and I'll explain to you the controls, and we have a phone ring there. So you said the discussion that you were having with this ex-witness, or current witness rather.
Right. Yeah, he's a current witness. I think he is definitely on his way out, but he still has trouble understanding, I guess, the difference, and this is the reason for this topic today, is the difference between unity and uniformity.
Mm-hmm.
Because from the witness side of things, unless you all look, act, get your information from the exact same source, if none of that is not the same, then you can't have unity.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I told him was, the issue is not as cut and dry as the Watchtower makes it seem, because they want to say very hard that you have to be a part of an organization, and that you have to believe the same things as the organization you belong to, or else it cannot be true. But in reality, what being a Christian is all about is about following Christ and setting him apart as Lord. And
right.
That can look differently for different people or even different groups, and yet it is still unified, because unity is about we are unified in the relationship that we have with Christ, but necessarily agreeing on all matters of doctrine and dress and conduct, even church authority, those kinds of things. Those are still important issues, but they don't necessarily define whether you're a Christian or not.
Right. Right.
Kind of like what Ephesians chapter 4 says in verse 4, there's one body and one spirit, just as you were all called to the one hope that belongs to your call, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. So So when it comes to, I think Augustine kind of said it best, St. Augustine, not our gracious host. He said, in essentials, unity, in non-essentials, liberty, and in all things, charity or love. So there are definitely certain things that we must believe to consider ourselves a Christian. there are other things that we can go back and forth on a little bit. You know, there's leeway or liberty there to discuss those things, you know, in-house. But in all things, as long as it is done in a spirit of love, it is true worship.
That's correct. Yep. And I think that's what I think that people have a misunderstanding as to what those essentials are. And really, it all has to do with the person and work of Jesus Christ. And so when we talk about the person of Jesus Christ, we're talking about who he is, which once again goes back to his lordship. So what does it mean to call Jesus as Lord? And when we talk about the work of Jesus Christ, we're talking about how men are to be saved. What was Christ's work that attained salvation? So I think the Reformers used 5 solas to kind of encapsulate those things. One is sola gratia, by grace alone. The other is sola Christo, Christ alone. And one preacher said, I think I just heard it last Sunday, you know, Christ plus anything is nothing because you cannot add to Jesus' work. So, it's Christ alone, and Christ plus anything else is nothing. We cannot add to that work. Jesus alone saves. And if you try to say, you know, salvation comes, Jesus' sacrifice plus whatever, my decision. Let's just say my decision to become a Christian was no. Your decision is not what saved you. It was Christ saving you and creating your decision. There is actually another. Augustine is normally attributed that statement. Archbishop of Spalato, Marco Antonio de Dominici, in his De Republica Ecclesiastica, this is the way he said it. He said, it's in Latin, it's omnis mutium ampliturum unitatum in necessitatis in omnibus caritatum, which means, and all mutually embrace unity in what is necessary, freedom in what is not necessary, and in all things charity. So I think that it's important, first of all, the latter part, that we should be charitable to all Christians. And I've encountered people that I would consider my brothers in faith that would judge me as not a brother because they haven't been charitable in all things. And we have to understand the body of Christ is a very diverse group. So what is it that we must mutually embrace in unity? What Scripture tells us what it is we must mutually embrace in unity. We must the Lordship of Jesus Christ. And Jesus makes that clear, and Paul makes that clear in Romans. But it says that we should be having freedom in what is not necessary, or in all things, in things non-essential liberty. So this is what comprises the body of Christ. This is why you have, for example, churches that baptize babies and churches that don't baptize babies. You have churches that even amongst infant baptizing churches, you have churches that will actually commune infants, and churches that won't commune infants. You have churches that like the old hymns and think it's a compromise. They have contemporary music in the service, and then you have churches that have temporary worship, which involves electric guitars and synthesizers and all of that. So there's a lot of diverse things. There is a book, actually, Gordon Fee. Gordon Fee is a professor at Trinity Divinity in Chicago, Illinois, Trinity Divinity Seminary. And I think that he said that as Christians we must remember that there will be differences in style, but we need to have unity in substance. And it's actually a book that has, it's great. It's a book that has nothing to do with actual diversity. It's about, I think it's a book called All Things in the Bible. But I had highlighted that little portion because it meant a lot to me as a former witness, that we should have unity of substance but differences in style. And so that's why you have Presbyterians. That's why you have churches where people jump and shout. That might not be the church for me, but it's church some other ex-witnesses actually know, and ex-witnesses really goes to that Pentecostal churches. And try not to really broad brush the different styles. It's really hard to do that as a Christian. You walk into a church and people are probably dancing and running down the aisles. You're going to be like, what is this?
Right.
And what's funny is I have a good friend. His name is Mark Weiss. And Mark, I have one of his articles on my Facebook notes. And Mark is a guy, if you were to see him, he looks like he would be totally out of place out of a shout and jump church. But Mark goes to a full gospel Baptist church. Now, a lot of people don't know what full gospel Baptist church is. Full gospel, generally people think, well, why is that? Why is it called full gospel? Is there a half gospel Baptist church? You know, is there 33 and a third gospel Baptist church? Once you've been out in a few churches like I have been, you come to understand what the difference is. A full gospel Baptist church is basically a Pentecostal church. Okay, they consider themselves full gospel because they accept all the sign gifts. And so I think that's part of the reason why they call themselves full gospel. They believe that the Gospels included miracles, and so they accept all of those miracles in the Gospel for their service or worship setting. So don't be surprised if somebody gets healed or speaks in tongues and there are lots of debates about all of that stuff. And generally, Baptist churches don't believe in gifts. So that's the other reason why full gospel is a distinction.
Yeah, so would be considered cessationists at this point, I believe.
Yeah. And most Baptist churches are cessationists. See, that's it. So that's why full gospel is such a definite distinction for Baptists, because it's basically Pentecostalism flows in, I guess, the Baptist worship setting. That is that they believe in, of course, immersion. They're immersionists. And not to say that other Pentecostal churches are not immersionists when it comes to baptism, but I think that they're trying to make the distinction that they're not. They don't have to be called Pentecostal. They're full gospel Baptist. So most Baptist churches are cessationists. For a long time, I was in the Southern Baptist denomination, which is cessation. So, Jeremy, would you care to share with anyone what that means? What is a cessationist?
A cessationist is one who believes that the gifts of the Spirit, such as speaking in tongues, healing, prophecy, things of that that were common throughout the New Testament church, have ceased after the first century. So it's almost exactly like the Jehovah's Witness perspective of the gifts of the Spirit. They were used for a time in the establishment of the church to show that God's favor had gone from Israel to the Christian church, but now that has stopped because the focus is on the gospel and the proclaiming of the gospel.
Right, and and that's also why the Jehovah's Witnesses take that perspective. They actually are a Baptist offshoot. The Adventists are a Baptist offshoot. The Witnesses.
Now, see, I didn't realize that. That you taught me something new today.
Yeah. Actually, most of the cults come from either the Baptists or the Methodists. They're offshoots from both of those. Just as a short history lesson, Charles Taze Russell got most of his ideas, none of them were original, from other people. Guys like George Storrs, guys like Jonas Wendell were hung around Christadelphian circles, which of course is another cult, which is why he had the Christadelphian Greek interlinear, which was got the name of the interlinear now. It's evaded me. But it was by Benjamin Wilson, that interlinear that they have. The name of it, though. So
it wasn't the emphatic diaglot, was it?
Yes, the diaglot. Yeah, the diaglot is by Benjamin Wilson, which was a Christadelphian. And so he got his ideas from Christadelphian circles. He got his ideas from Adventists. I think Storrs was a second Adventist. Wendell was a Millerite.
Yes.
And so the Seventh Adventist Church is actually a break-off. They, of course, like I said, you have Second Adventists. Second Adventists were, of course, believing in the second advent of Jesus coming. The word advent means coming, so the second coming of Christ. The Seventh-day Adventists were started by Ellen G. White, which actually was following her husband, which I think his name is Uriah White. And her husband was an Arian. And Ellen G. White's earlier writings were what we consider semi-Arian, which means that they believed that Jesus wasn't God. And that's also where Russell gets his angel Christology, because Arianism is really not traditionally that Jesus was an angel, just that he was not eternal and not God. So all of these ideas are floating around, and Russell's picking some here and there, some there. Nelson Barber was an Adventist, but the Adventists came from William Miller. And William Miller was a Seventh-day Baptist. So you have a lot of fringe Baptist groups that were cultic. You have some Mennonite groups that were cultic. It's funny because we went to Lancaster, some were Mennonites. For example, if you ever come across a Mennonite church that is Mennonite Abrahamic faith, they are Arian. That means that they don't believe in the doctrine of the Trinity, they don't believe Jesus is God, and that is where the witnesses get their Arianism from. So the Baptists and the Methodists were responsible for a lot of offshoots that came from them. Of course, we know that Joseph Smith was a Methodist, and he started his group from the Methodist Church. Not that he was an active Methodist. They actually, he was kicked out of the Methodist Church because of his crazy ideas. So you see that all these groups coming out in the 1800s. If there ever was the witnesses believe in that after the last apostle, that's when the black hole apostasy began. If there ever was a black hole apostasy that the Bible would have predicted, it would have definitely been the 1800s. It was a mess. So that's where we get all these groups from. Some of them were Christians, some of them weren't. Some of them were fringe.
And I believe there's there's
Right.
quite a bit of crossover between Ellen White and Charles Russell. They were somewhat contemporary each other, and I feel a lot of his stuff actually was kind of borrowed from her, especially his idea of vindication theology and things like that, and a lot of his Christology was kind of borrowed from her writings.
Right. Yeah, and what's funny is that the reason why they're so works-oriented salvation is William Miller got his ideas from someone else, and so there used to be a magazine, or actually religious journal, called The Midnight Cry, and I think that Miller used to read that, and it was from a guy who practiced British Israelism, and his name was John Smith with a Y. And so British Israelism and John Smith's teachings is where William Miller got some of his teachings from. Now, going back to discussion with this current witness that is wondering about which denomination do we go to. It's not the first time that we've had that conversation, and I wanted to share with everyone a article that was written by David Reed. Now, David Reed, for those of you who don't know, was a former Jehovah's Witness elder. He's written several books. One of them is called Blood on the Altar. He's written Jehovah's Witnesses Answered Verse by Verse. He's written a bunch of books, actually, but But David Reed has an interesting article, and when he came out of the witnesses, he actually had a little newsletter that he used to pass amongst witnesses. This is when he was an elder, and it was called Comments from the Friends. And of course, that's Jehovah's Witness lingo. We used to always call the brothers and sisters the friends. Jehovah's Witness lingo.
Absolutely.
And so he had this journal he was passing out called Comments from the Friends. And eventually, that, along with the fact that he wouldn't cut his hair, what got him this fellowship. Because he couldn't wear long hair in the organization. In fact, in defiance, I think the first two things I did when I became an ex-witness was grow my hair and grow a beard.
Right.
Of course, you couldn't because you was a military man.
Right. Yeah, that was an unfortunate thing for me. But once I got out of the military, there was a time where I was sporting the goatee and everything else.
Yeah, there you go. So anyway, it's the 1997 winter edition of Comments from the Friends, and you can go to answerjw.com/CFTF/online. answerjw.com/CFTF/online. It used to actually be CFTF.com, but I think he's changed it because he's putting a whole lot of other stuff on there. But you can get some of the editions of Comments from the Friends on there. And there's a drawing of a roller press that you roll dough in when you want to flatten out flour or flour dough. Mm-hmm. And in there is these cookies of people, cooked in the shape of people, and one of them is coming off the pan and as a cookie, and it's called Cookie Cutter Christians, called by God to adoption as his free children. And then the image below that is all these different people, all different nationalities, different cartoon people. And I think that this encapsulates uniformity. The fact is that cults expect unity to be like a cookie press. They think that we all should look exactly alike. that's what they expect that's what they're looking for in churches. That's what they're looking for in religious organizations. And that's what they compare us to, they expect Jeremy and Gus to be exactly alike in the way we think religiously, spiritually, and they expect us to be cookie-cutter Christians, the Stepford wives of organizations. That's what they expect us to all be like the Stepford wives. If you've never seen the Stepford, have you seen the Stepford wives, Jeremy?
It's been. I think I saw there was I believe it was in the 90s. They did an updated version.
Yeah.
I think it was Matthew Broderick was in that. Yeah.
Right. So the Stepford Wives was a movie about a community. Well, you got to see it, right? You got to see it, Jeremy? The one with Matthew Broderick?
Yes. Can you not hear me? Hello?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I hear you. So share with everybody what the Stepford Wives was all about.
It was about all of these women in this community were exactly the same. I mean, they looked the same. They had the same outfits. They talked and acted all the same. And it turns out that they weren't really people at all. They were robots.
Right. So a Mormon.
Did I get that accurate, or am I not thinking about that accurately?
That's exactly what it was. And so they would all have their same little maid outfit, like with the apron and everything, and they were supposed to be perfect wives for these men who wanted perfect wives, and so a perfect wife, I guess, according to what a man would deem a perfect wife, I guess she would have to be, fit. She would be beautiful. She could take care of the kids easily. She could cook perfect meals. She never talks back. Supper's ready.
Yeah. Completely and totally subservient. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the cookie cutter mentality. This is what the governing body wants. They want you to just obey what they're saying and don't give them any lip and just take it on the chin. And if there's a problem, you just wait for Jehovah. It's going to clarify.
Exactly.
So that's what cults want. The Mormons want that. They want perfect uniformity, and they consider that unity. The Jehovah's Witnesses want it, and here goes my criticism now, people, because I've had Catholics on here, and this is what Catholics also try to use as a form of, this is proof that we're the true church, because we're all under the same church. We're uniform. We have the same Mass in Brazil, any time of the day, the same Mass in Washington, D.C. We have the same Mass in Venezuela as the same Mass in China. It's all about having the same. And so is the same always good? Is that what really God wants? Does God really want the same?
Right.
What kind of sameness are we talking about? So there is uniformity in Christianity. Let me explain. There is a small amount of uniformity. There is not an overall uniformity, nor do I think that God wants uniformity.
Exactly.
Jeremy, you went and you joined the military. That was a choice that you made. And if you didn't make that choice to join the military, it just so happens I did. I wanted to actually join the military, and then my wife got pregnant. But some people won't allow that to be an excuse to join the military. Because your wife got pregnant. You still go ahead and you do your 13 weeks and your wife is at home with the baby, and she'll be all right. And a lot of military families make those sacrifices. It's just called just another sacrifice that we're making for the safety of our country. But if Jeremy didn't join the military, if you didn't join the military, you couldn't bring Christ to the military. If Evander Holyfield didn't become a boxer, he couldn't bring Christ to other boxers. Where I'm at, I'm bringing Christ to the people of the career choice that I made, wherever I'm at. So we've all, we have to bring Christ in our diverse ways.
Mm-hmm. That actually reminds me of something. Oh, absolutely. And it reminds me of a conversation I was having with a Jehovah's Witness elder not very long ago. He was asking me how things were going with my family, and I was explaining how, my daughter is, in soccer, and she's doing this and that, and then he got this look over his face like, he didn't approve of it. And he started extolling how the Jehovah's Witnesses don't do extracurricular activities, they don't go to college, and things of that nature. And I just stopped and I asked him, so who goes out and reaches the college age kids for
right.
Christ Jesus? I mean, we have Campus Crusade for Christ, and, we have Christians who go to the university, who share Christ with their friends, with their professors. But, he really didn't know what to say to that, because there is no way for them to reach them if they aren't home on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So, it just reminds me that we are called to be a diverse group and to do different things so that we can magnify Christ in everything.
Yeah, and the best way that we can also reach is they are our peers.
Certainly.
My daughter can reach high school students that I couldn't reach because they're her peers. They might respect her views more than mine. Oh, he's just a grown up. He don't know. He doesn't identify with us. My daughter's 15 years old, and people could always say her peers, all her 16 and 15-year-old friends, 17, whatever. They could always say he's a grown up. He doesn't identify with us. But since one of their own is a Jesus freak, daughter is a bona fide freak. She loves the Lord. Then they respect the fact that they have someone amongst their own that hangs out with them, that walks and talks with them about all the other things that teenagers her age walk and talk about, and also loves the Lord, and they just can't put a finger on it. And they know that she's the religious one in the bunch. And there may be a point where, because she's the religious one in the bunch, and something goes wrong and awry in their life, they can come to her and say, I'm having these problems. How would you deal with them? Because I know that you're close to God. That's the way they would say, you're close to God. And she's had those instances, actually. So what you said about is very important. It's about peers. Now, Hegel's a good one, Jeremy, and this really reaches out to you. There are two instances in Scripture where a military man, Jesus reaches out to one, and the other one, Peter reaches out to in the book of Acts. And nowhere does it ever say that Peter or Jesus said, stop and leave the military. Does it?
No, not at all. In fact, there's no discussion. It just simply talks about how they were, Cornelius in Acts, how he and his family received the Holy Spirit even before they were baptized, as a sign that God was faithful to this arrangement. He was pleasing with it. So, they received the Holy Spirit, they were baptized, and then Peter goes on his way, and there's no discussion about what happens to them afterwards. There's no exhortation from Peter to leave the military, to stop being an officer, or any such thing. In fact, even earlier than that, when some Roman, centurions come up to John the Baptist and they ask him, what they should do, he doesn't say, drop your swords and, come after me or become my follower, my disciple. He says, don't cheat people, don't steal. There's no discussion about them having to leave their profession.
Right.
And I think that's significant, because if they had left their profession, then there would be scores of people that their lives would never come into contact with any longer. So as far as, the soldiers that Cornelius had underneath of him, we don't know how many he brought to Christ, but I'm sure that he had some sort of impact because of the way that his life changed, and because they could see that in his dealings.
Yeah. And in fact, I think that there's a scripture where Jesus actually encourages the disciples to actually to buy weapons.
Yes. That was just shortly before the Passover, before he was taken by the Romans.
Right. Let me. I'm trying to pull up the text now, where Jesus talks about buying. Here you go. Buy two swords. Luke, the book of Luke, I think it's in Luke chapter 22, 38, and I'll just. I think 38 or 36. Here it is. I believe it's 36, actually. I'm trying to pull up the context. It's Luke chapter 22, verse 36.
Mm-hmm. Let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one.
Yeah. So, yeah. Do you have it with you? Do you have the text, Jeremy? Could you read it?
Sure. It's Luke 22:36. He said to them, "But now let the one who has a money bag take it, and likewise a knapsack. And let the one who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. For I tell you that this scripture must be fulfilled in me." And he was numbered with the transgressors. For what is written about me has its fulfillment.
Yeah. So,
and they said to him, "Look, Lord, here are two swords." And he said, "It is enough."
Yeah. So right there, I really, people think that Jesus was a pacifist, and no, he wasn't a pacifist. I mean, I know a lot of atheists will definitely point out that he wasn't a pacifist because he's coming to bring a judgment, and he's going to. That judgment is not going to be easy for some people, and when he comes back. In fact, the fact that people are going to want the mountains from his arrival says something about his judgment.
Absolutely, and that could even be summed up in his actions on the earth of cleansing the temple. I mean, certainly he wasn't a pacifist when he turned over the money changers' tables and made his own whip to drive them out. Yeah.
So I mean, the fact that this idea of Jesus was not a pacifist, and that's one of the other, of course, myths that we have to dispel with Jehovah's Witnesses and their idea of neutrality. Jesus believed in securing your home. It's just common sense. If somebody comes in to murder my family, I'm supposed to protect them, and how else am I not going to do what Jesus said, which is that sell your cloak and buy a sword, or in this case, maybe a gun.
Right?
Something to defend yourself.
And Aaron makes a good point about why Paul made the illustration of the armor that a Christian was supposed to carry, the spiritual armor. I mean, if being a soldier is completely antithetical to the Christian faith, then making the illustration of the armor would also be antithetical to his point. Yet he made it anyway.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. So there's a scripture that addresses unity and diversity, and there's actually a book. And if you wanted to get a book, when Ray was alive on this earth, and he used to lead the BRCI conventions along with Marilyn Zweifel, and Tom Cabine was a part of BRCI. Tom Cabine was one of the Bethel overseers, and so you had Tom, you had Ray. Marilyn Zweifel handled the 1-800-Y-1914 hotline for many, many years before she passed away. And BRCI was an organization which was supposed to be a lighthouse for ex-witnesses. The BRCI stands for Biblical Research Commentary International. And they would have conventions. And they had a scholar that was invited to one of the conventions and wrote a book called Diversity and Unity. And his name was Shirley Guthrie. So you can still get that book on Amazon and other booksellers. It's called Diversity and Unity. And Shirley Guthrie Jr. is a man named Shirley. Shirley Guthrie Jr., just like the name, Shirley, H-I-R-L-E-Y, is the author of the book. And so that's one of the books that I would recommend if you wanted to read up about what it means to be a part of Christianity and why Christianity is diverse and what is it the areas where Christianity is unified. But ironically, I have a Bible here, a New King James Version Bible, and the subtitle here for 1 Corinthians chapter 12 is Unity and Diversity in One Body. And it's in verse 12, and let me just go ahead and it's kind of lengthy. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 12, and this really tells you that it's absolutely biblical that we should be different and yet unified. And if you were to go into the Bible and you would look at the first century church and the book of Revelation, it highlights 7 of the churches. You will find that the 7 churches were all very different from one another. They all had very different problems from one another, and some of them had very different qualities which they were commended for from the others. So this idea that of every congregation must be exactly alike is an unbiblical idea, and we must not confuse unity for uniformity. So, Jeremy, do you have 1 Corinthians 12:12?
I do.
Could you read verses 12 through verses 12 through 19?
Sure. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body through many are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And if an ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body.
All right. So, your comments on those texts.
Well,
What do you think
I think it's very interesting because, we're called to be different and act different, just as our different members of our body, the illustration is being given, don't act the exact same way. A hand doesn't act exactly like a foot, nor should it, because then you wouldn't need, you don't really need four hands, but your foot serves a purpose and your hand serves another, just as your eye and ear serve different purposes. So the purposes are set in their particular place. We don't need to confuse them for one another or enforce that they all act the same, because if they did, there wouldn't be one body.
Right. I use an illustration out, and I shared this with Jeremy, and I really think that God loves diversity as much as he loves unity. I think that God loves, and you just look at creation, just look all around us. Just look at, you have dogs, then no dogs are exactly alike. You have different kinds of dogs, yet they're all dogs. You have short dogs, you have tall dogs. You have, furry dogs, you have dogs with no hair. You have different kinds and types of dogs. You have shepherd breeds, and then you have bulldogs, a whole different breed of animals. And then even within the breeds of bulldogs, they're not the same. You have the American bulldog. You have this kind of bulldog, that kind of bulldog. That really just tells you that God loves our uniqueness. He loves our uniqueness as much as our unity. So he loves the fact that he created dogs, but he also loves the fact that no two dogs are alike. Not even that, but there are different breeds, different kinds of dogs within the breed, and there are different types of dogs within the kind. And yet they're all dogs.
Exactly.
The same thing with any species of animal. It's a wonderful canvas that God. And so when people say Christianity is a mess, no, Christianity is exactly what God intended it to be. God is guiding the Christian church to a point. Jesus said, I will be with you. Matthew chapter 28, verse 20, I think 28, 27. He says, I will be with you until the end of the age. So Jesus is guiding us supernaturally and spiritually to a vantage point. We haven't gotten there yet, but just think about that. In guiding us, he scattered us across the globe. He scattered us across the globe. Their Orthodox have lived peacefully with Muslims for thousands of years. For 1,500 years, Orthodox Christians have been able to exist and coexist and not be stamped out by radical Islam and still exist in the Middle East. It's amazing the fact that any Christians have been able to survive for 1,500 years of a religious oppression, by the way, and a religious governmental oppression under Sharia law that says that if you evangelize to anyone, we have a right to behead you and to kill your whole family. And yet they've been able to coexist somehow. That takes a type of Christianity to exist. Ethiopian Orthodox, and yet there are incidents where they died for their faith. I mean, we know ISIS killed like 80 men, beheaded them right there in Egypt, Coptic Christians, and yet they're still existing there in Egypt.
Oh yeah, Coptic Christians are some of the oldest Christians around too.
It's because they came from the ministry of the Ethiopian eunuch and from the Apostle Mark. Mark is the reason why Egyptian Christianity exists. So it just really shows in creation we can see that I more applicably use that illustration with snow. The fact that each snowflake is exactly unique. There's no two snowflakes that are identical. Every snowstorm, every snowflake is absolutely unique from the next one. And if you look under a microscope, they're beautiful. And yet when they land, they all come together and form one pillow of whiteness. So that's unity and uniqueness coming together. Christianity is very diverse. I always say I'm an oddball in Christianity, but even though I'm an oddball in Christianity, what we do here is a watchdog ministry. It's a ministry for looking out for oddballs that are not just oddballs, that they're just aberrant. We're talking about Jehovah's Witnesses are not considered Christians because they are absolutely false Christianity.
Right.
And yet Jeremy and I may have different views, and that doesn't bring us at odds as far as accusations of being imposters.
So I mean, we don't have to agree on everything, every single thing, and I think that's a good point, because if we're trying to reach out to a Jehovah's Witness, they don't want to accept that line of thought of uniqueness and yet unity. They want to have that, we have complete unity of thought. The idea that the doctrinal unity has to be exact, otherwise it can't be true. And so I have an illustration that I've been working on. I haven't gotten a chance to use it yet, but I thought maybe that if somebody else ever got a chance to use it, it might be pretty good. Let's say you were to have two men about 30 years ago. One of them was a Lutheran and one of them was a Jehovah's Witness. They both have an accident and fall into a coma. Okay? They wake up, miraculously, in the modern day. And they want to go back to their particular, religious affiliations. Which one of them would be able to return to their worship without having to make significant doctrinal adjustments? Would it be the Lutheran or would it be the Jehovah's Witness? I mean, that's a good question because I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it would definitely be the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right. I mean, even the question of who's the faithful and discreet slave, I mean, that's kind of a foundational question, but that's changed significantly since the last time, if the Jehovah's Witness 30 years ago to today, it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, I'm the only one who has said this, but if Russell was alive today, he would be fellowship.
Absolutely. So would Rutherford.
Yeah. Because their beliefs would be very, very different, than what witnesses teach today. First of all, they wouldn't believe in the overlapping generation. Russell didn't believe that the great crowd was an earthly hope crowd. They also, Russell was a staunch Zionist. He absolutely believed in the restoration of the Jewish people. The Bible students still believe in fact, they have a great DVD called, it's a DVD, I think it's, I forgot the name of the DVD, but they have a DVD and the Bible students put out talking about how Israel was restored, as the European Jews were restored to Israel in 1948, and the things that they suffered. I think it's called Israel Appointment with Destiny. Israel Appointment with Destiny. If anybody has any questions or comments that they want to share, just go ahead and dial 347-934-0379 and press 1, and we can get you on the air, and you can go ahead and share any questions or comments 347-934-0379. Or if you want to share any comments or questions in the video suite, you can go ahead and submit those questions there. Yes, and Dallas was saying, now I wonder if Joe's Witness waiting for Christ to return, hiding in the bunkers, are more afraid of the judgment of Christ. And yeah, once again, that's that bunker mentality. That's the other thing about cultic groups, is that they have this apocalyptic, pie in the sky, waiting for the time of the end. Like it's going to be a dreadful thing. First of all, as a Christian, I don't dread Jesus' return, and nor do I think that I'm going to need to be in a bunker when he comes back. That's funny that they had that in their video series where they're in the basement of some apartment building or house, waiting for the end, and that's it's really silly. It really is. The Bible makes it clear we don't know the time of the day when Jesus is going to return. And when he does return, it's only going to be good things for those who are followers of Christ. We can expect to hear something, and when we hear that something, there's going to be a change. And there's going to be, whenever a soldier hears a trumpet, it's time to fall in line. So we have something really grand to expect, not something that requires hiding a bunker for. And I think the bunker series they did video actually harmed their image for some witnesses. Some witnesses really didn't like it at all. So I think that they did themselves damage by actually visualizing that. And I just want to let everybody know we have, I think, 23 minutes left in the program, and the number is 347-934-0379. I don't think that we're on the Six Screens Network today, but I'm sure that Rick will be on at 5:30. He normally comes on at 5 or 5:30. So you'll want to dial in on Six Screens at 712-432-8710 at 5:30. So on this issue of unity and uniformity, I did mention the Catholic Church, and this is ironically, this is the thing about when groups claim to have uniformity, like the Jehovah's Witnesses do. I think that it really backfires their agenda, because the Jehovah's Witnesses as an organization, I mean, organizational procedures may be uniform, that is, that they have the same directions, but from what I understand, and having been in enough congregations, the further you get away from Brooklyn, the more liberal some of these congregations are. And so, and we've had people on this program that have come from, kingdom halls from other countries and from other communities, international communities. Spanish congregations are a lot more liberal with these rules than, let's say, brothers in New York might be. In fact, brothers in New York, I thought, were quite liberal when it came to partying. My family in New York, in the Big Apple, I mean, the stuff that they was doing, and I was a devout witness, I consider was downright worldly.
Yeah,
they were out partying at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't have a whole lot of experience with the other congregations, but I know that we did share a hall with a Spanish congregation, and our meeting would end. They would come in, afterwards, and the difference of dress in the culture, was something that I think you would probably be talked to if you dressed that way in our congregation, but they would have a little bit looser standards, I guess you could say. But that's the extent that I was aware of.
Yeah, I mean, there are areas where a lot of witnesses felt like if they wouldn't get this fellowship for it, they can deal with the ostracism or maybe the small criticism they would receive for doing certain things. And I know that some of the congregations, they would have parties. I know that some of the assemblies I would go to, some of the sisters were wearing very short dresses and not being criticized for it. Brothers could have certain types of haircuts. And so the whole point, this idea of control, I think, it goes back to the Bible once again. This is what Jesus had disputes with the Pharisees and the Sadducees about. I mean, they felt that they would stretch the phylactery, that is the law, to protect people from God's wrath. And so what did that comprise of? That meant that if the law for the Sabbath was that a Jew could only walk 500 yards on the Sabbath, and he wouldn't violate the Sabbath, the Pharisees would change the law or stretch the law to say that God's law was that you couldn't walk 400 yards on the Sabbath. And why would they do that? They would do that because they know that it's human nature to break rules. Mm-hmm. And so they felt people had this idea that the law was actually 400 yards and not 500 yards. And they violated the law of 400 yards by 25 feet. They didn't break God's law necessarily.
Right.
And so if they didn't break God's law, then God's wrath wouldn't come upon Israel and his people. And so they protected the people by stretching the law, stretching the phylactery.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is that they were still violating the law because they thought God's law was 400 yards. And if in their heart and their conscience they felt that they were violating God's law 400 yards, then God would still hold them accountable for it because they knew they were breaking God's law in their hearts. It didn't matter that the actual law was 500 yards. The fact is that when God says something and if you think you're breaking his law, then you've broken the law, first of all, of your conscience and the law that you feel that you've broken deliberately against God.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's kind of summed up in Jesus, his, critique, as you could say, of the Pharisees, especially what comes to mind is like Matthew 23, where he's talking about how, they tithe even a tenth of the spices, the dill, the mint, the cumin, and all the other things, and he said there was nothing wrong with that. I mean, he said you should have done these things, but you neglect other things as well. So he gave the illustration of straining a gnat, but yet swallowing a camel, because, while they were in this process of being scrupulous on every little thing, they looked over or looked past or ignored the weightier matters of the law. Most importantly, what it means to the individual believer's heart. Are you simply doing these things because you think you're going to get a free pass, or do you actually do them out of love and respect and honor for God?
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. Dallas brought out a point. It sounds like it's okay to speed if it's just 5 miles over the limit. That's actually a good point because in the United States, I think you're given, if the speed limit is 50, you're still not violating the speed limit if you're doing 59 miles an hour.
Right.
I think that you're violating the speed limit if you do 60. I think if it's over 10 miles over the speed limit, or it might be 11. I think it might be 11. That's when you're violating speeding law. So
I once heard the saying under 9, which means under 9 miles per hour over the speed limit, you're fine. over 9, you're mine, as in, the cop's going to pull you over.
Yeah, over 9, you're mine, yeah. So, yeah, we have these posted 50 miles an hour, but it actually really means 59. Because if you do pass 59, that's when you can get a speeding ticket. And that's when speed traps will catch you. So, I mean, that I think that's a good example of speeding. Hazel, I'll tell you, this is an example of diversity. And I know when you're an ex-witness and you're choosing to step into churches, I'm just going to give you, if you never stepped into a church before, I'm going to give you an idea of what you're going to step into and what you're going to see, which might offend you. And I know in the father-in-law, I know there were things that offended me when I walked into a church. I'll tell you, one of the things that churches will have, and once again, this is an issue of liberty, and some churches have these things, some don't. I walked into a Southern Baptist church. Well, the first church I actually walked into was a holiness church, a storefront holiness church, which had no structure. I mean, you talk about, jumping into the water when it's cold. Going from a witness service to a holiness church service is jumping into an ice rink, okay? You're not even hitting the water. You're hitting ice because it is completely different environment. I mean, it is shouting and dancing, speaking in tongues, and there's no really order to the service, and it's just you're sitting there amongst what you would think is insanity, but they think is worship. So, but the second church I walked into was a Southern Baptist church, and that's where I got baptized at a small First Baptist of Welcome here in Welcome, Maryland. And the thing that bothered me when I walked into the church, well, there were two things that bothered me. One was an American flag was right there at the corner of the church in the front of the church, an American flag. And, the whole idea of neutrality and Jehovah's Witnesses going hand in hand. And I've actually had the pleasure of listening to Dr. Robert Jeffers the last couple of weeks about voting. And so, one of the things that offended me as a witness, the American flag and then a big giant cross on the back of the church. The thing that offended my father-in-law was Christians still smoke, and they had an ashtray outside of the outside where people could smoke. If they wanted to go smoke during the service, they could go outside to the. Now, personally, that still offends me because I think that if you can't wait till your smoke break during worship service, you got a really bad.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Devote that hour and a half of your time. Just suck it up. Devote that time for God. The singing a song, pay attention to the message, whatever. Usually, church service is about an hour and a half, unless the preacher really likes to preach long, and it's 2 hours. But there was a time, actually, and there's some churches that do this. They have church all day Sunday. There was a time where most churches would have worship all day Sunday, and they have dinner at the church, they have brunch at the church, and they would do different things throughout the day. So, depending on where you're at, like these are very different things, different types of services. And I just want you, if you're an ex-witness and you're going to walk into a church, to expect these things that are different. They may not be your cup of tea. They may be offensive to you because, not because they're necessarily unbiblical, but because you need to readjust your thinking and do some research on those things. What was your experience like, Jeremy? Did you first walk into the church?
Yeah, the first church that I ever attended was a mega church, actually. And so, it was quite a culture shock walking in. They had a coffee shop in the lobby and a bookstore, and then you go into this huge auditorium and they're playing I think the band was actually playing Life Away, their personal cover, and so it was very much a culture shock witnessing that for the first time. But afterwards, I started attending a much smaller church, only about 40 people in the congregation, and I found I like smaller churches more than bigger churches. Not that there's anything wrong with it per se,
right.
but ended up finding a much smaller church, and now the current church that I'm in and serving in is a congregation of about 80, I would say.
Okay,
so,
that's good. Yeah, I do. I also prefer smaller churches also, because then at least I think when you're in a smaller church, there's more of a family atmosphere. People know you, you know them. I think the pastor knows you. So, you go to a mega church, then I'm sure that the pastor doesn't know most of his congregation, and I think most larger churches function in cells, and what I mean by cells is that they'll have group Bible studies, and that's where you get to know the leadership in those group Bible studies.
Right.
But the pastor,
they had representatives all around as you were coming in, and if I guess they would ask everybody if you've filled out an information card before, and then they'll try and contact you, email you, call you, and see if they can get you into one of these smaller groups as you were talking about. But like I said, it just wasn't for me.
Yeah, same here. Well, right now, our family is church shopping. Because I pastored the church for a year and a half, and the church closed in May, I think the end of May, and so we've been attending several different churches. And most of them are the size of church that we are looking for. Usually about maybe from anywhere between 30 to maybe 80 people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're still on our search. There are things that we're going to weigh in after we've scoured the area and choose a church home for us. I mean, I encourage ex-witnesses to look for a church, find a place where you can feel comfortable with. Don't try to hack this thing all alone. I mean, it can be lonely, but also I think that this idea of social media being the church, and even podcasting, where we all reach out to one another on video suites and on podcast radio. I think that there's nothing that can replace human touch, human contact, seeing someone's face. I think that those are positive environments. I think that we need a family structure again. If you've lost family, you can gain that in a church. For our family, for the longest time, because I lost most of my family in the witnesses, my family has always been wherever I go to church. And it's been a blessing. I'll tell you, I have great memories when my wife was pregnant with my daughter, and how the church provided meals for 2 straight weeks for us. And I mean, not like I didn't expect it, but they just did it. They came every evening and they provided some food, and I was just shocked and floored by the hospitality, and it really impressed me how when churches come together, how they can really be just you can see the love of Jesus. Pregnancy centers providing, moms out there that are teenage mothers that don't want to abort their children, providing them clothes and food and resources that they need, sometimes even an apartment or a place to stay. That's where you can really see the church reflecting the love of Jesus and coming together, because for all of our distinctions, for example, Protestant versus Catholic, that kind of thing, I kind of try to bring that together here. And I have my criticisms of the Catholic Church, and I have the things that I really do love about Catholicism. And I made no bones about both of those things. But, you can see love in action when churches come together, for example, that there is no distinction between Catholics and Protestants when there's an earthquake and people need food and supplies, or when there's a teenage girl who's 16 years old and is considering aborting her child and she comes to a pregnancy center for help, you'll see Catholic and Protestant volunteers there together working for the life of that child. And so those are the beautiful things that I love about the church. And that goes back to the opening song, Adam's Road Band, the song The Church. So and our diversity and our unity together in coming together.
Right.
And any thoughts that you have, Jeremy? We're down to the last 4 minutes. So.
This song, about we have, and emphasizing that is important because, especially, one of the differences you can have on social media that you can have in the local church is the opportunity to partake in the Lord's Supper or communion, however you want to call that. That might be another thing that would be shocking to a witness, is the idea of that. But since I have come to Christ, that is something that I personally just absolutely treasure. And so, it's very hard to do that behind a computer screen, but it is extremely, it's extremely moving. It's extremely, a personal experience when you get to do that in worship and reverence of your Lord.
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I think the epitome of unity is experiencing communion with fellow believers. I know. I tell you what. When I was a pastoral assistant in the Lutheran Church, what I really loved was we had two ways of doing communion because we had a traditional service, then we had a contemporary service. But I loved that what we would do is in the traditional service we would come and line up at the altar, and we would kneel at the altar. We're all of us all around the altar, and we're holding hands together. And I had the privilege of both administering communion and also partaking communion in that fashion. There's nothing like holding hands with fellow believers, and then he comes by and he's issuing the bread. But before he issues that bread, we're holding hands, and he says a blessing over that bread. And we hold hands also for the wine, and he says a blessing over the wine. And I just felt so like we are together. This is the body of Christ. This is what it's supposed to be like. We're all one in Christ, and here we are holding hands. And if there's any more unified moment, is what Jeremy said, partaking communion. That's why I said that the highlight of the Witnesses Now for Jesus conference is actually Sunday having communion with that witnesses. It's a beautiful thing. So we're down to the last minute and 40 seconds. First of all, I want to thank Jeremy for being our co-host today. And Jeremy, did you want to be back next week for Dr. Nunez?
I actually won't be able to be here next week for Dr. Nunez, no.
Okay. All right. So we'll plan not next week, but not even the following week. There's a rebroadcast, but the following week. I think that will be around. Hold on, let me look it up. I guess it would be around the 17th, maybe. The calendar's not coming up there. It would be the 19th, I think, the 19th. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Saturday. So it would be the 19th, yeah. So, yeah,
right.
Either the 19th or the 26th, either one. 26th, I'm going to have you moderate the debate on the 26th, if that's cool with you. If you have other plans.
That's perfectly.
If not,
No, it's perfectly fine for me, yeah.
All right, cool. And so I'll just show you where the debate ring is, and all you do is just and I'll tell you I'll give you the details about the format. So
okay.
coming from me and Jeremy, we just want to let you know to please pray for Jehovah's Witnesses, pray for those that are involved, and I'll see you next week at 1 o'clock. We're going to have Dr. John Nunes for an hour, and then we will go ahead and let him go, and then we'll parlay into a conversation over what we discussed with Dr. Nunes for the next hour. So see you all next week on Healing X Outreach. Bye-bye.
You and God bless.